Hey
Hey,
y'all,
what's going
what's
on, y'all?
Hey, hey.
up? Hey everybody. So I am April and I have my beautiful co-host with me, Dante, Jackson, and Dominique in the house. What's
Hey,
up?
y'all.
Yeah,
Hey, hey.
so well, we are totally naked. We are totally naked and we are coming to you guys with that straight talk, no chaser, nor trying to give you guys some real life situations that we all deal with, but with some Christian solutions. And so we are so thankful that you guys keep rocking with us week after week. Thank you for showing up again for another week of this of some conversation and talks. And so I kind of wanted, or we all wanted to talk a little bit about some of the conversation that we had last week. And so, just a real quick recap, we talked a little bit about being prepared to lead, and sometimes when we feel as women that the man is prepared to lead, that we sometimes take over in situations where the man may be falling short in our minds, and or he may be falling short and then taking the lead. And so we continue on this vein of family and being in these relational dynamics. And so we want to talk a little bit about family matters. And so we had a lot to unpack last week, and we didn't have enough time to do it. And so today we're going to really dig deep on some of those family issues. And so if you guys have been rocking with this all year long, it's just crazy because like we've been at this almost a whole year. It's like time just flies. But if you have been rocking with us and you see some of the other episodes, then you can understand that some of us on this show, well, most of the co-hosts on this show, we have some interesting family backgrounds and some family dynamics. And it may be even fair to say that most of us probably have daddy issues, just like on some level. Not the same daddy issues. I think Dante shared something that we didn't know last week about his family, with him coming up in a family where there was domestic violence. I know myself being raised in a family where my stepfather was there and my father not being in the home. Dominique has shared her similar story about her stepfather and Jackson's father not being in the home at when he was growing up. And so with these daddy issues, there's a lot of different perspectives that we gain from it. And so I just want to we want to dig in. So let's just go. All right. So with you guys, if there was a question with the daddy issues that we may have experienced, how has that shaped or impacted how you have reared your own children for those who have kids and or approach relationships moving forward because of those daddy issues that you may have had?
So, you know, looking at what happened in my household when my brother and I were growing up, um, I noted how my mother felt, um, as a result of how my dad treated her. Every day wasn't a bad day. Every day wasn't horrible, but there were definitely many, many, many instances where there now as an adult I can recount that there were many, many instances of domestic violence, verbal abuse, physical abuse um, that had taken place. And I think that, seeing how that made her feel as his spouse, as his helpmate, as the one who was spiritually speaking, the one to cover the house and be the head of the house, seeing how that made her feel on a consistent basis and how it made even us feel, experience it. You talk about Christmas morning, seeing your mother be beaten on Christmas morning, things of that nature. I think as an adult, you learn that that's not something that I want to do, or adapt or add into my household when I raise my children or when I'm married. I want to make sure that my household is healthy. We have healthy conversations. We talk and we know how to deal with conflict resolution. And so I think, in terms of even approaching a relationship, I'm very strategic, in terms of what my expectations are. I'm at a stage now as I'm sure you all are as well, where I'm looking to marry, like I'm dating to marry right now. And so my expectations and my questions are a little bit more strategic so that I can ensure that both of us are whole before we even approach the idea of dating, marriage, relationship, talking, boot up, whatever you want to consider it. So for me, it's about asking those strategic questions, being intentional, biting some tough bullets now to save you from long-lasting disaster in the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think um, for me, I did not have my biological father in the home. I did have my stepfather who ended up adopting me, so he's my daddy. But growing up, just a quick synopsis, growing up with him, I didn't experience any kind of like verbal abuse, physical abuse, or I didn't endure that. However, he always wanted to try to be my friend. It wasn't more so of, let me be the father figure, let me, rear you in the way that, a father should rear their children. And he always came from a place of, I love your mom, and I never want you to feel like I'm trying to be your dad. And, for a child who never had a dad, to tell them that you're not trying to be the dad, even though as an adult, I understand what he meant by that. As a child, it was just like, okay, it whatever. But now as an adult, when it comes to my own son, I am very vocal to him in terms of who he is, what he means to me, what he means to the Lord. He was never a mistake, no matter how young I was. I just really tried to pour a lot of identity into him because I didn't feel as a child that I had identity. And even now I struggle with the identity piece of it, in terms of feeling, well, maybe that's not identity, more so abandonment, where you feel like you're not good enough, that you're not wanted. And going into a relationship that way, I found that I was basically second guessing a lot of things. Like, hey, you okay, babe? You okay? You sure? You sure you want me to go? You sure you want me to this? You sure you want me to that? And when you bring something like that into a relationship, that level of insecurity, it definitely weighs down on the other person. So my biological father not being in a home left a hole. And, now I'm aware of it, but unfortunately, I've made a lot of bad decisions in relationships and outside of relationships due to that. Yeah.
I mean, do you want to go, Jax?
Well, I can.
Okay.
So well, my dad wasn't in the home. So I always say that I had daddy issues, not have daddy issues, because I think I've kind of worked through a lot of them. Even though what Dominique said was very, very key about the identity piece of it. A lot of times growing up, me being the oldest of, not the oldest, I'm sorry, I do have an older sister, but me being the oldest man in the household, you just feel a lot of weight or a lot of responsibility to do things that might be out of what you should be trying to take on. So I started working early, started working very early. I started, contributing to the home, and this is like, 14, 15 years old, where you're like helping mom handle bills and things like that, where you just have a sense of like urgency or responsibility to do things that might be, way well beyond what you should be concentrating on at that particular time. But I think that it really molded me into a very responsible and a very focused man. But at times you felt like, how can I put this? Like you weren't protected or secure, if that makes sense. Only because you didn't have like, yeah, my mom was great. Don't get it twisted. Miss Jackson was awesome. But sometimes when you don't have a male figure in the home, you don't feel like even going to sleep some nights, you don't feel protected, if that makes sense. You don't feel like you have security. You don't feel like it's like you, if something happens, are you enough to handle it? Does that make sense? And you don't feel that when you don't have a strong male influence in the house. And also, the unwanted piece of it. It's like, well, kind of what did I do to kind of make you not want to be here? But once I built a relationship with him, I was able to tell him how he was, the perfect example of not to be as a father, and just letting certain things be vocalized really helps the dynamic after the fact.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I share in that sentiment of, being able to say that, having my dad not being in the home and being raised by my stepfather definitely has affected and impacted how I move forward in relationships. And subsequently too, I know that I mentioned children. I'll just share you guys, I'll say as a testimony with you guys that one, I'm 41 years old and I've never been married. And, some people from the outside looking in and may say, oh, wow, why haven't you gotten married yet? Or, why haven't you had children? But I'll share that I did get pregnant once. And because of some of the family issues that I observed, and not saying that these were right, but this is my truth, that I getting pregnant without being married. And I had made the decision that because I wanted to be married at like when I got pregnant or when I had my first child, I chose to have an abortion. And since, from that, that's just one area where it's affected my life. So at 41, not married and don't have kids, but the whole marriage component is a whole nother thing. It's because I'm looking at some of the relationships that I had in my immediate family, whether it's my mom or my siblings and or aunts. And I just really did not want to get a divorce. I had made a decision I didn't want to get divorced. So in my mind, I'm not going to marry the wrong person. I'm not going to marry the wrong person. I'm not going to have the wrong person in my life because I don't want I don't want my children to be raised in a negative environment. And so when you talk about, I know you guys all had your own stories, but my truth is that I made decisions early on that were very strong decisions, a strong decision to say, hey, I'm not going to have a home where the father's not in the house based on some of the daddy issues. And because of that, I made some decisions that in some ways that I'm sad about today, especially when it comes to me having an abortion. Now, I know that that's a very controversial topic for many people, but for my truth is that was something that was that deep seated and deep rooted. And because I didn't want to have a negative family environment, then I decided to, I'll forego having a family right now. And, it is what it is, unfortunately. But we move forward. I mean, I know that was like very heavy, but I don't know if I've ever shared that on this show. But
I won't let you sit in that heaviness alone. I've also gone down that journey as well, as a teenager, making just a lot of just being promiscuous. Let's just say what it is, right? We being honest. This is totally naked. We laying it all out there, right? So being promiscuous, but the promiscuous, I'll never say the word right, but being promiscuous. Yes, there we go. Bam, you better come through with the word. Okay. Yes, but that came from the fact that I was looking for love in a man, looking for a void to be filled, right? So when you do have those daddy issues, and I think that takes us maybe to the next place we're going. But, you know, it is very important that we allow for the parents to be the parents in our lives, you know. And
Mhm.
and in my case, and in a lot of other people's cases, if we be honest, he did not want me. Let's just say that. Like, he did not want me. Now, there are cases where the parent just straight up just don't want you. And that's terrible. But in the cases where the parent does want to be a parent, and we're so busy bickering and fighting because me and you can't get along, and that child is suffering, then what we're basically doing is continuing the perpetual cycle of fatherless homes, you know, women who have to be stronger than they probably want to be, stepping up in a position that they not necessarily want to step up in. So we're
Right.
still creating culture where the woman is taking charge. We're still creating culture where it's not giving room for men to be in the household, for men to be able to rear their children, even if they're outside of the household, because we aren't taking a minute to stop and say, you know what, this has to stop with me. This
Right.
has to stop with me. You know, and for me, just to share a little bit of where, just to be honest and transparent about where I am today, you like, even now, I feel that my daddy issues are seeping into things that don't have to do with relationships. They're seeping into work. Okay, work is getting really stressful. I'm getting stressed out. I'm not good enough to handle this. Am I equipped to handle this? You know, maybe I'm not wanted. Maybe they don't want me here. You know, all of these type of thoughts play in your mind. And even as a parent, sometimes I question myself. I'm always asking my son, and I know he probably like, stop asking me this, lady. But I do ask him, am I a good mother to you? Do you think I'm a good mom? But not to say that that question is bad to ask your child, but what I'm saying is when you constantly asking your kid that, that's a problem. Like, that's a problem for you internally. You following what I'm saying? Those those things have impacted even now just my life as a totality, right? And I think that as parents or as people, grown people who decide to get together, it's imperative that before we introduce children into the equation, or if there's already children in the equation, when you are bringing yourself into it, you know, being a step parent, we need to be making sure that we are making room to have the God foundation, if that makes sense, right?
Can I just
Yeah.
say can I just say, just to digress for a second? I know that the other co-hosts will attest, but Dominique, I have to give it to you. You are an excellent mother. You know,
I
I've seen you definitely take care of Deshaun and
Don't let me cry. Let me take myself off the screen before I cry.
no, but I've seen it. Obviously, we've all seen you in different instances take care of your son. And that is extremely commendable. You know, you were a young mother and you could have easily wrote yourself off, wrote your child off, put your child on your family and just, you know, have nothing to do with him. You know, but you have been uh, upright and making sure that you raise your child as best as you can. Give him all the opportunities that he can have. You know, expose him to the right things. You know, teach him, pour into him spiritually, which I think is definitely something that's necessary. So I didn't want us to do this show, you know, or to allow you to make that statement, or for us to do this show talking about family construct as a single mother, and we not acknowledge, you know, your contributions and how you've really poured into your son. You know, you are an exceptional example of what single parent hood looks like. So major
value.
commendations to you.
Yes. And
I
I think
appreciate
that, you
you for
know,
that.
like, because, you know, the two of us, Dante and myself, aren't parents. But I think that it's, you
No
know, like,
Lord.
when you're observing these two, because like I know that Dominique, you kudos to you, because I think that we have these issues that come up, but some people, how we react to it, everyone doesn't respond the same way. Sometimes we respond in the same hurt that we may have experienced. And I think that it's also fair to say that Jackson, on the flip side of that, like, and we've had all of us have had side conversations with him on how he approaches raising his 3 boys.
Phenomenal father.
Phenomenal. So with you, like, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, look, it's like nobody gets hand claps like that all the time. Well, y'all get Mother's Day and Father's Day, but but the point of it, I'm just saying. But the truth of the matter is though, no one really gets a big handbook on how to parent. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so when we talk about what's going on in the family dynamic and family constructs of today in comparison to what that used to look like back in the 1950s or the 1960s, here in the US, where you have the mom and the dad, like that was in the home for the most part. We have some very interesting dynamics going on. And so how we rear children, and how we figure out how to do that. We have co-parenting now. We do have step parents. Like I had my stepfather in the home. He just he passed away a few years ago, but just 2 days ago, we were celebrating his anniversary or his deathversary. And so, and I felt that pain too, because he was in the home. I think that some of the things that we do to try to manage in these difficult times is something that should be highlighted. Like we talked about this as a sidebar last week, and I think that it's something that we would like to present to you guys as well. So if it's okay for me to share, but Jackson has 3 boys, and Jackson truly loves his boys. He's pouring into his boys, and he's doing everything that he needs to do to be a father figure in their lives. And so one of the things that Jackson, he has been candid about this and open and honest about this as well, that he had went through a divorce. We even have his ex-wife Pache on a show.
Hey girl.
They did a phenomenal job. Y'all need to check out those episodes. Like they are truly, like I would say, life-changing, and can give you some good tips on how to co-parent. But
yes,
in the grand scheme of things, there are some non-conventional things that, in order for Jackson to be the father and be the leader in his home that he does, that we have to deal with today. And so if someone is dating said Jackson, because he calls himself the Jackson, they may have to deal with some interesting dynamics with dating him. And Dominique, and we all had some different views on this, so we're gonna just throw it out there. Okay, so what am I talking about? Jackson, and because he is so passionate about raising his children, in the event that right now, if there was a hurricane, not only are the kids coming to the house, but ex-wife is coming too, and that if there is some financial, look at him, if there's financial issues and problems that are going on in that household, he feels a duty and a responsibility to make sure that if he has the means to do it, he's going to be there for them, in or out of a relationship. So I guess then, one of the things is like, so is that something that, you would feel comfortable with in being with someone who has like been very open and honest and saying that, look, they're my responsibility. And because their mom is attached to them, then I feel somewhat responsible for that household too.
See, the thing that rings and speaks loudly, even in Jackson's situation and Dominique's situation, I'll go to Jax because that's who we're referencing. Unconditional love, which is something that Christ teaches about. God's love is unparalleled, and I think it's something that we all aspire to have. When I heard what Jax, how the love that Jax still has for his ex-wife and how he cares for his kids and how both of them, he and his ex-wife have been able, regardless of whatever broke them apart, they've been able, they love each other enough and love their children enough to want to provide such a healthy family construct. You know, in most cases now we call it modern family, blended family, but such a strong, healthy unit for the benefit of themselves first. They have to live and deal in it. Most importantly, for the children. I think it's something when we talk about the family construct, it's very important that we keep in mind, keep in perspective what's in the best interest of the child. I commend him for that as well because he too could have easily been like as a man, young, he's not young. Jackson is 70 years old, but as a young man, he could have easily been like, I'm done. I'm gonna go out here and be a Mac daddy. I'm good.
Lord.
Instead, he made a commitment to the family unit, and I think in times like these, we have to be reminded of the importance of loving unconditionally, and also the importance of family. I definitely have to give you your props as well, although you're 100 years old.
So I guess I should speak up because the last time we talked about this, I was on the deep end of this thing. I was
like definitely not feeling it.
But my thing is, I would need you to understand that these are my kids, and they. I'm always okay. I'm just saying. So
because here's what it is. So I will be. Let me just say, from the last conversation to today, you would think that my life. I feel like I done did a 360 or something, but I, not to say. Okay, here's what it is. Because I understand that I do still have a level of daddy issues that I need to work out. I understand that I would not be ready, not from the kid standpoint, because from the kid standpoint, being a mother, I'm like all day, every day, we're going to do what we got to do for these kids, period. Right. Okay. Right. The kids is not a concern for me. I don't care if we got to go over there in the middle of the night because the baby can't sleep and the baby calling your name. Go on over there to that baby and ensure that baby gets some sleep. For me, where it comes in is the woman having access to a man in the same way that I feel should belong to me.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing. That access, there is some access that reserved for whoever I'm seeing at the time. What I'm saying is I've got to make sure that the person who is a leader of my kids is also well taken care of. That has nothing at all to do with, it's not like we're gonna be over there making out and all this. That has nothing at all to do with that.
So let me ask you a question.
She has leadership over my kids. It has to be at another place. So if she's not taken care of, how are they going to be taken care of?
So I have a question, because this is the looming question that I cannot shake, because this is not just you, Jax. I know other men who feel the same exact way. They feel like I'm single and I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. However, if she and my kids need, I'm coming through. Why don't you just be with her? Because if you're, and here's what I'm saying. If you feel that at some level you still have an obligation to take care of her, to ensure that her emotional state is good, to ensure that her financial state remains good, then why you just don't be with her? Because if I am with you, I'm not really comfortable with you going out of your way to ensure that she is okay in regards to now, not to say that you can't check from here to here and there, but I'm just saying the constant checking of your emotional state, the constant checking of your financial state, it makes me feel like then just be with her if you're still so concerned.
I think that's very cavalier, only because when you consider, I have a friend, and I lifted him up last week. When you consider his girlfriend, who they have a child together, she had a flat tire, and she was on the side of the road. She had just picked him up from school. She couldn't call anyone else. She called him. stop what he's doing. Now, they aren't in a relationship. They never was married. They just were dating in a long-time dating situation. They had a baby. She called him to come and help her fix, replace the tire, whatever. He did so because it really wasn't about, the two of them or whatever they have going on, past, present, or future. It was a mother of my child, the one that brought my child into the world via God, is in need, and so I think for me, I'm not married, but I'm just speaking for me. I see things, try to see things from a spiritual component as well. For me, spiritually, God utilized this woman or this vehicle to birth my child, my blood, into the world. And I really love this child, or if I'm really grateful to God, I'm going to make sure that I have a level of love and consideration, mindful that I said a level, because it can be taken out of context and it can become disrespectful if you allow it.
If you allow it, right.
And I'm not going to allow it because that was not going to be a part.
I think that the lines get blurred. I think that the line, okay, so there's a lot of blurry line relationships that people have, and so some people like Jada Pinkett and Will Smith call it entanglements, but we're not calling Jack's situation an entanglement, but we will say that these are some very tough situations that people are in, and like the truth of the matter is, like, absolutely, we talked about covering last week. Dominique talked about covering, right? Like her man covering her in different ways. And in some instances, what you just described, Dante, and what Jax is doing is covering. He's covering her. Okay. And so there are needs that may not be need to met, or like someone else need to meet, because she has a covering. And and I think that at the end of the day, we have these interesting relationship constructs or family constructs that we're dealing with today, but we have to be honest that they're not easy. They're not easy to deal with, because on the opposite end, as strong of a woman as you are, or as strong of a man as you are, you still may feel some kind of way when someone else is in the house with your kids and you're not in there, and or you feel some kind of way when your finances or your financial picture may be a little bit different because he has to pay child support and or so into that home because he has children or a child there. And so, I mean, it takes a lot of communication. Obviously, it's getting done. Obviously, people are doing it, but but we can't be naive. I'll say naive and say that these things, just deal with it or it's okay. It's not. We have to manage in these tough and difficult situations because they're blurred. They're blurred lines. Like, although I feel like because of Jackson's communication with his ex, as well as just who he is in general, I think who Dominique is with her communication, like, you guys are able to verbalize and vocalize some of your wants and your desires, or what you stand for and what you don't stand for, maybe at a higher level than some people are able to communicate. And maybe it's because they don't even realize that they need to communicate that. But there are people that are dealing with situations that are similar, and it's just a hot mess. Truly, it's a hot mess. People, tires getting darn slashed, and people losing their lives. I mean, seriously. I mean, I'm like going all the way out. Yeah. But people don't know how to handle those relationships when it's like, especially if you feel like Dominique a certain kind of way about why you over there. Because I'm supposed to be. I need to.
I definitely feel a certain kind of way, because I can't hide that I feel a certain kind of way. But I think that at the end of the day, we have to remember that although God's way isn't the popular way or seen as the way of the times, his way is always the way that gives us
the most peace,
the most protection, the most covering, when we follow it that way. Now, not to say that if your situation is not aligned to the way that God said it, that you cannot be blessed, that you cannot come out of the on the other side victorious, that ain't what we saying, because we are products of coming out on the other side victorious from a dysfunctional, not, necessarily to God's construct. We still are successful people, and it happens all the time, right? But what we're saying is, just because something works, just because we figured out a way to make a broken thing work, doesn't mean that we have to keep settling for the broken thing, is what I'm saying, right? So that leads us into really our takeaways at this point, because we just want to hit you guys. We need you guys to know that it's time to make a shift. It's time to make a move, because it is not healthy for us as people to continue to do a couple of things. Number one, it's not healthy for us to continue to think that we can live on an island alone. That's number one. Number two, we need to learn how to work through and handle our emotions. I think that if we take a moment to really fix what's broken, to allow God to come in and be the master surgeon, when we come and meet these people, we are better equipped to stay with these people, if that makes sense.
I agree.
Okay. And then lastly, if you have children, when the children comes into play, we have to allow the parent to be the parent, even if we're not together. And that means, I don't care if I don't like the girl that you with. I don't care if I don't like the neighborhood you living in. I don't care if I don't like the job you have or the food that you got at the house. It's not my job to make your home a perfect home that I think in my brain is acceptable for a child. I have to allow him, no matter what I feel, as long as he ain't verbally and physically abusing the child, I have to allow him to raise the child in that way. Right. So that's my take on this, when it's time for us to make a shift in this thing. What about you guys?
That the other thing that, just to piggyback on what you're saying, Dom, is that one, that the child benefits from it when those parents are coming together, communicating, and making sure that those, if there is some blurred lines, that the family is, I know what mom looks like, I know what dad looks like. I think it's important for us to realize that at the center of it all, when it comes to these relationships, especially when it comes to family, that the children are benefactors from the most healthy relationships that we can be in together. And that that sometimes we may not be able to have that role in the house, whether it's been because of singleness, or a single mother or a single father, and or a divorce. And so when those things happen, if the person isn't available, as like with the Jackson, to be able to be the father, or if the mother is not able to be there, then maybe we find that child a role model, whether that's through a coach, or whether that's through a minister or a teacher, someone out there, a mentor, so that those roles and those voids are filled. Because the truth of the matter is, we only stay a kid for 18 years and then you become an adult. And unfortunately, adults grow up, and or kids grow up, and so then you're adults dealing with relationships. And so some of the things that we pour into them as children are definitely something that we have to think about manifesting when they become adults. Right. And so that's my take.
Right. I agree. All right. Anybody else had something for the people before we wrap this thing up for them?
Well,
you go. What's going on?
No, I'm just going to piggyback off of what Dominique said, that it's just really imperative that kids see how things are done from both a male and female perspective, and how each individual thinks, because I think a lot of times the household that the kid is in, the majority of the time, they sometimes feel like they have, like, oh my God, the control of how the kid thinks, and that's not always the good thing, because now they're picking up everything that you do, both positive and negative, and not able to balance that with their other parent who they should have access to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree. I agree.
Dante with the nod. So you agree with all of it? You accept
I
it?
agree with all of it. You know, I just want to say, you know, major shout out to all of those who are out there, you know, raising our young men and women to be all that they can be, spiritually, mentally, intellectually, physically. Major commendations to you. And to those who may be struggling at one point or another as a single parent or even as a two-parent household, you know, we're praying for you. And then my last thing is go vote.
Go vote.
Yes, early voting has started. We are.
Yes, it has. If you live in Florida, 7 to 7.
Go
So
vote,
make no
people.
excuses. At this point, you just need to not let your vote go to the waste.
Don't be batting them eyebrows at my them eyelashes at my people.
I got to, because I need them to know that although we're on here talking about relationships and how to remain healthy in that, but we can't neglect our duty as citizens. We cannot neglect our duty to our future children and to these families that we are emotionally preparing and mentally preparing for. We need to ensure our country is in the right position to give us what we need when we get ready.
I mean, and it's an excellent time to show your kid what the right process is. Just kind of throwing that out. It's an excellent time if they're, you know, of age and it's an excellent time to show them how this should be done so that they're not looking confused once they turn 18. But I digress. Go ahead.
I agree. So now that we kind of
matters, all in the family
all
matters.
of this,
it does.
Yes, you're right about that, April. Well, with that being said, I would like to just say thank you for coming by and having a conversation with us. We absolutely love all the support. We ask that you like, share, and subscribe if you are liking what you're hearing. We love you to life, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.